The objective of this session, I think, as we have already clearly brought out to you people, is that we would like to bring out to you whatever is happening on the product side, on the financial innovative product side, such that you are able to use them more and more. And in that light, we have a national and an international perspective here, ranging from banks, institutions, NBFCs, and also the people from World Bank, to give you a kind of most micro, macro, and a complete global perspective. That's the objective. I think the entire topic being the same, so a lot of perspective has already gone into the whole thing. And what we intend to cover in this session, I would largely give as pointers, because there are expert speakers who are going to speak about it. And like last time, I would again request all the questions that you have or that come up to you during the deliberation, kindly note them down and send them over. Like last time, it was very orderly and it helped a lot. So I would strongly urge that. But some of the key themes that we wish to discuss, I would like to bring out: the green bonds, what is happening in that space and how they can be raised. Second, the credit enhancement as a product. Third, the infrastructure debt funds. Fourth, the InvITs, the infrastructure investment trusts, which are also emerging as great products and almost deleveraging the balance sheet, allowing a lot of debt and equity to be raised simultaneously on executed projects, and helping unit holders get the returns that they are looking for. And some quasi-equity, which IFCL will probably discuss about, alternative investment funds in solar energy and others, what all can be done, some of these key themes that we would like to cover. Products like bridge finance, which I'm sure Yes Bank and Tata Cleantech would like to obviously cover. Some green lines which have been made available to some of these people, and the originator of some of these green lines of funds like World Bank. So I think without, I would say, investing too much time into the introduction, which I think the theme has already been set, because all of you were probably there in the last session as well. So I pick up tabs and I start from directly from the global leader first. I invite Surbhi Goyal to first. Before I do that, Surbhi, I'll have to introduce you. So sorry, I should have started from there. So Surbhi is here to talk to us largely about the complete global perspective. I'm sure you recall that IFC was the one which actually did the leadership in that sense for having set the benchmark on the masala bond also. In fact, they coined the term masala bond. And I would be requesting her to speak about giving the total global perspective. She's a senior energy specialist with the Energy and Extractive Global Practice of the World Bank. And she has experience across the entire power sector, the energy, the transmission, the renewable energy, the renovation, modernization of thermal stations, hydro sector. She's also engaged in India on financing shared infrastructure for solar parks, promoting new technologies, renewable energy. Some of these falling big tariffs that you are seeing, a lot of credit actually, which we have not given in the last session, and we would like to do it today and just now, is to World Bank, because of the structuring that we've been able to put in place. Specifically, you saw all this in rooms and others. So I think she'll probably give you a perspective to that also. She has a master's degree in economics from Delhi School of Economics and a bachelor degree from Delhi University. Prior to joining the World Bank, she was with ICRA Management Consulting Services Private Limited. Please join me in welcoming her to give her the most important address today. Thank you.
Thank you, Sanjeev, and thank you, my fellow panelists. So, I think most of the items that I wanted to begin my presentation with have already been covered in the last panel discussion. So, what I'll do is I'll quickly just give a brief synopsis of what we are doing and how we have aligned over the time when it comes to the engagement from the multilateral perspective. So as Dr. Ashwini mentioned in the last session, the two most important targets that are there has been set forth by Government of India under NDC to be achieved by 2030 are first reduction of emission intensity from 33 to 35% by 2030, and then 40% cumulative electric power installed capacity. So 175 gigawatt targets of Government of India that has been put forth for renewable energy installed capacity installed capacity as a whole is very, very ambitious. We all know that, and there are lots of strings attached to it. So we are trying to get into the entire value chain of the power sector. So not only just investments purely in the solar sector, but also bringing in new technologies in the country. We are also looking at the variable renewable energy integration into the grid. We are also supporting system operator on how to make a balance between solar and wind. Lots of software support also. The investments are being brought on through the first three bullets that I have put on the right side of the slide. The first important engagement that we are working with Government of India is on supporting the common investment in the common infrastructure facilities in the solar parks. I'll cover each of them in little more detail in my subsequent slides. The second investment that we are looking at, and which was also much talked about in the first session, was about the investments in the solar rooftop segment. The third one is introducing new technologies. What we are looking at, solar wind hybrid, energy storage with solar and floating solar technologies. And then the fourth one is what I briefly covered about the analytical work that we are doing through supporting the system operator. So without wasting too much of time into general and macroeconomic framework, which you all are very much aware of, in fact you know more than we do because you actually work on the ground with the various utilities and the stakeholders. So this is the first line of credit that we have with IREDA, in which we are supporting the common infrastructure facilities in the various solar parks that are going to come up in the future in India. Some of them have already been supported. For instance, Rewa Solar Park, Mandsaur Solar Park, where we have seen very, very competitive tariffs, and it was like a point of inflection, specifically Rewa Solar Park, in terms of solar tariffs. This project is a very small project because the needs are also small when we look at the common infrastructure quantum required to be invested in these parks. It's a blend of IBRD funding, which is hardcore World Bank financing, and a clean technology fund, which is very concessional. It's 40-year tenure product, while IBRD ranges between 20 to 35 years to be more precise. For this line of credit, we have 20 years of loan available, or precisely 19 years at the USD rate available to IREDA, which will be absorbing the hedging cost and will be providing the INR lending onwards to the various SPVs, which are joint ventures between state nodal agencies, SECI, or maybe by SECI, because we have 3 modes or 4 modes in the solar park scheme. We are supporting 3 of them. So essentially our funding is going towards the public sector financing. Wherever they have comparative advantage, we feel that there is where we should be engaging in and not crowding out the private sector investments. So we are not financing the generation facilities in here. We are just helping the ecosystem to bring in more private investments in the sector. As usual, apart from the bigger investment component, we always come up with something softer, something which can actually help sustain the project as well as the industry. So there is a small technical assistance component of $2 million where we are supporting both IREDA as well as the partner SPVs in the states who have to actually run with the agenda forward, because our line of credits are limited, but we really want some, sustainability factors to be inbuilt. So with all these factors in mind, we thought that the objective of this program should be to establish large-scale solar parks with as much as leveraging possible with the limited amount of resources that we have in this project line. So the project structure looks like this, which is a little complicated. though it's not as complicated because you are looking at it for the first time. So what we are doing is we are providing funds to IREDA. IREDA will be on lending it to the JVs of SECI and SNA, or maybe only to this SNA or to SECI, whosoever is owning the park. But given that it should be a public sector entity, at least majority by public sector. And then these JVs or SNAs will be running the process of hiring the bidders, hiring the contractors. So one would be on the shared infrastructure facility side, transmission, access roads, and water drainage, whatever the requirement of the park would be. So it's like a very bare minimum. We don't want to overinvest in the solar parks because ultimately everything gets reflected in the tariff. I'll come to the next slide where I'll explain that how this was done in the Rewa Solar Park. And then these JVs will also be hiring the solar developers who will come and invest in the solar park, generate the solar power in there. These solar developers will pay the user fee, which will help us recover our lending. So the value addition that the bank has brought in this engagement is twofold. First is that the longer tenor of loan has helped spread out the cost of the user charges that is to be levied by the solar park developers and to be charged from the solar generators in the park. What we have seen is that the upfront fee itself is lower as well as the user fee, because it's spread over longer tenure. The NPV itself is very much lower as compared to the rest of the parks that have come in the country. Then a very important contribution that we feel that we have done in Rewa Solar Park and in the subsequent parks that will be coming up is that we have helped the organization RUMSL to select a park, a site area which is encumbrance free to the extent possible, no social environment issues, land clarity is there, which actually was also reflected in our interviews with various developers, that they really felt that was a very, very important factor for them to come forward and bid the lower prices. Apart from that, of course, the halo effect that the bank group brings in, because the due diligence and all was done in very much detail. IFC was a transaction advisor, as Sanjeev mentioned. The bid documents and the entire bid advisory process was run by our sister concern. The only important thing and the major, contributor to this was that the risk allocation matrix was brought out more transparently. So it was known in the market that these, risks exist, but there was no clarity that ultimately if, say, termination clause is triggered, who will be the party who will be taking the brunt. So here what IFC did very meticulously is to factor in lots of suggestions from the developer community and brought them transparently in the bid documents. There were 3 or 2 pre-bid meetings that happened. Lots of concerns were taken into account. So the underpinning point is that the more transparently you run the process, the more efficiencies you gain out of the market. So that is what we feel as the biggest value addition of the World Bank Group. Apart from that, as Dr. Ashwini mentioned in the last session, that we are also working with MNRE, with SECI, with IREDA to bring out a payment security mechanism as a product. So this is still being discussed, nothing casted in stone yet. Lots of questions, ifs and buts around it, so I can't disclose many details about it, but just that it's like a sweetener for the developers. Because in Rewa, what we have realized that the 3-tier security mechanism that was introduced played a very, very significant role. For international bidders, the state government guarantee was a very, very important factor. Though domestic bidders know that state guarantees are like, it's okay. So, but for domestic bidders, the payment security mechanism built in by RUMSL itself was little valued more than the state government guarantee itself. So we saw that it's a merit, there is a merit in introducing such kind of mechanism, and given that, we are also having a very limited headroom as we move forward in our financing. So our proposition is that moving forward, we are moving from financing purely the central public sector utilities or the state utilities to combining the financing with the credit enhancement mechanisms like we are doing it now, and moving forward then maybe just doing credit enhancement instruments. Apart from that, a smaller thing which we are doing, which nobody talks about, that 175 gigawatt, where is the manpower? Where is the skill set? So we are trying to build that also around the Reva Solar Park so that more people can be ushered in, the more people can take advantage of the development happening in this sector. Coming to our second engagement, this is solar rooftop project with SBI. It's a big intervention that we are doing. $625 million project on our balance sheet, with $500 million coming purely from World Bank, and again a concession financing of CTF about 125 coming in there. What we have realized that because Government of India has put forward the targets of the 40 gigawatts and all. As of now, we have been able to achieve only 1.2 gigawatts. So how to actually promote the sector? We saw that there is not enough confidence within the financial institutions and the lending community to take up these kind of projects. So MNRE actually interacted with lots of multilateral banks and bilateral banks and asked us to support their agenda to take forth this particular initiative. So, like we are working with SBI, IREDA is also being, partnering with KFW and ADB with Punjab National Bank. So there are like lots of banks which are actually coming up and supporting the sector, though they are in different stages. So concessional financing actually is helping us understand the market more better, because that brings more confidence to financial institutions that, there is some kind of risk mitigation. So unsaid kind of word, but concessional financing always absorbs some risk from the market. So the status is that this is also bank approved and under implementation. This loan is available for the commercial and industrial users as of now, but in phase 2 we want it to be more sustainable and then to penetrate into the residential sector as well. Here what we did is that, as you all must be aware, that when bank comes in, generally that's the mindset that we bring in so many strings along with us: social due diligence, environment due diligence, procurement, approval at every stage. So we have deployed an innovative instrument here, program for results. So we have certain disbursements and indicators agreed with SBI. Once they meet those indicators, the disbursements will be made. So we have just produced some frameworks with them. They will agree to it. We will monitor the framework and they are adhering to it, but no micromanagement. So we are also trying to evolve with the times and understanding the needs of the sector. This is one of the technical assistance activity that we are doing, and most of the first house discussion were also touching on these issues, that bankers don't have the confidence, they don't know how to interact or how to do the due diligence of the solar rooftop segment, how they are approaching, what they should ask for, how they should report back to their management. So this is exactly what we are trying to achieve out of this. It's a huge facility. There will be a project management consultant who will be running the show on behalf of SBI, and the penetration of this particular capacity building exercise will go to the distribution companies, to the state nodal agencies, to the regulatory commissions, to the financial institutions, beginning with the branch offices of the SBI, so that there is understanding that how rooftop segment should be taken forward when it comes to due diligence and actual investments. In the beginning, it's 3 years activity, but extendable by 2 more years. The third product that we have is still under preparation, but we are working with Solar Energy Corporation of India, where we are working not only on just bringing the financing, but also bringing the industry to a new level. So there we are exploring the possibilities of engaging on the solar wind hybrids at a megawatt scale, 130 to 150 megawatt scale. Never ever happened in the world across. Small scale projects would have, of course, come up, and you must be aware about them. But this is like a mega scale project that we are looking at. Again, in this, what we are doing is we are focusing more on the grid connected, because we feel that to make any industry self-sustainable, it's important that the manufacturing and the developers industry should be looking at the bigger picture. They should see that there are bulk orders coming in, so that they can bring in much more economies of scale into the country. So Coming to the second innovative thing that we are doing here is we are trying to experiment with energy storage solutions. You would have seen that 3 tenders have come out recently in the market on the energy storage, 55 megawatt hour. So what we are trying to see is we are going to launch a framework exercise just to let us know, and to the government of India for their information and for their, taking it forward exercise, that what should be the checklist for selecting the storage solutions into the country, which state, which city, something sort of that, and what kind of framework, what kind of technical parameters you should factor in. So that is what we are beginning in, and then we have definitely a line of credit within this to invest in actual storage project, which can be another demonstration project in the country. And then floating solar plants, again, this is also coming online. NHPC has come up with, there are small scale pilots already out there, but nothing large scale has come up. So again, just to reinforce the message that I'm trying to pass on here, that we are trying to be as innovative as possible in terms of bringing on, say, credit enhancement instruments, looking at the new areas where 175 gigawatt targets should be expanded to and should factor in those kind of technologies, along with some concessional financing and, of course, the capacity building instruments. So this is my last slide, exactly summing up what I just said. We are supporting wherever the comparative advantage of public sector should be, because as World Bank, we can only support public sector. IFC, as Sanjeev mentioned, is more towards private sector. They come and, invest in equity. They help companies go for green masala bonds. They have lots of instruments there which can help the private sector community, and most of you must be aware of it, of course. And then I already mentioned about that wherever concession sources of financing are available, we try to deploy it so that the impetus is given to the sector, new developments and new financing could be leveraged. We are trying to promote the communication strategy with the relevant stakeholder. So for instance, we are also engaging with Ramsal. They are going to have a big plans in expanding their solar parks agenda, how they should communicate, because the bulk consumers are there, then there are discoms and lots of stakeholders who are eyeing for these kind of opportunities to meet their RGOs, which have not yet become mandatory, but sooner or later it will become. And then of course payment security fund is what we are actually looking forward to. A small thing which I have not mentioned here, and again a talk that we are doing with lots of sectoral institutes and the ministry, of course, about the build and flip model, which is like sort of takeout financing, where the developers invest and take up the construction risk upfront, though there are very smaller risks upfront in solar sector per se. But again, for bringing in international investments, it's just a model that we are deliberating at how we can do. And then the public sector, after running it for say 2-3 years, hand it over to some other private sector company, or just replace our financing with some private sector financing available, so that we can actually take on the higher risks during the initial period of the project cycle, and then once it's up and running, it could be substituted. I'll stop here, and please, any questions maybe towards the end of the session.